Cheers. I hope you guys are having a fantastic Monday and you had a great weekend as well. I am here with Benedict today with our AMA to you guys. And guess what? You can literally ask Benedict anything and everything. He's going to answer it. Probably.
Most likely. Most likely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
I know
morning,
you
everyone.
degenerates will ask some. Yeah. Huh?
I was just saying good morning to everyone as well, or I mean, good afternoon if you're where I am.
This is true. No matter where part of the world, welcome, welcome to all Voyagers. We're all one people in one community. But we're going to be talking today and sharing, and Benny's going to be sharing, details of his life and his history, and just so everyone can kind of get to know him. And this is going to be fun because Benedict is kind of a newer addition to the group. Like when it came to he's not really well known like through Algorand and stuff like that. He came in kind of late, but he's been swinging so hard. So and I'm going to be honest, guys. I have loved working with Benedict. He's probably one of my favorite people in the whole community, and I am beyond excited to do this AMA with you. So,
Appreciate that,
anything
Cody.
you'd like to add before we start, Benny?
No, I just appreciate your kind words and yeah, definitely reciprocate that. It's been great working alongside yourself too. But I'd say yeah, I definitely it's
Likewise.
interesting. I feel like I've been in the Algorand ecosystem, but just lurking. I'm not super active on the socials, but I've probably been here. Oh, God, I don't know, like 3, 4 years. Not from the beginning, obviously, but reasonable amount of time, to be honest. But yeah, most people
Mm-hmm.
won't really know who I am.
Alrighty then. GM Algo Wi-Fi. Appreciate you stopping in. But all right. Here's the first question I got for you, Benny. Is can you explain
Go
to me
for it.
about your development history?
Yeah, so it's funny actually because yeah, I did start off as a developer, but I wouldn't say, well, I wouldn't say I'm a particularly good developer. I wouldn't say it's something I particularly enjoy, at least writing the code. I do like hacking things together, but I'll come on to that in a bit. But I honestly, I hadn't coded until I went to university. So I did computer science at university. I was doing a master's there. And actually, that's probably the first time I touched code was in first year of university, which was kind of interesting because most people, when they did go and start computer science, had dabbled in some capacity. And while I was very much deep into computers, I'd never really picked up or tried to attempt to do any software engineering. But fundamentally, at the end of uni, got a job at JP Morgan. That was probably the first place that I actually was paid to write code. Having done a degree for sort of 3, 4 years, you definitely pick up the skills you need to write code. That was good fun being at JP. It's a good company to go work for, but it just wasn't really my cup of tea. It was just a little bit too big, a little bit too slow, and it just doesn't really kind of fit in with my sort of mindset, I suppose. Um, and so after being there, I think I was there for maybe about 2 years. No, actually about 3 years in total, actually, because I was down in Bournemouth for a year, which they had a bit of a tech hub. And then I was in London for 2 years as well. And after that, I ended up going to Amex. That was actually probably more in my wheelhouse because it was R&D. So it's focused around customer acquisition and referral campaigns. And so with it being R&D, it was a lot more interesting for myself. I can get bored quite easily when it does come to those sorts of things. So it's quite great to just be able to like pick up and just hack things together and just like build prototypes and initiatives. So I ended up staying there for maybe a year or so. We kind of got to the point where the initiative we were working on, they wanted to productionize and sort of push us into being like a full-time team, which wasn't really what I signed up for. So I just decided to leave, then went to a hedge fund for probably about 2 or 3 years again. That was pretty intense, not gonna lie. Long hours. Again, like traditional finance stuff wasn't really my cup of tea either. I sort of ended up leaving there to go work at a different company in payment processing, which funny enough, it was the work I was doing was actually kind of replacing the work I had done at JP Morgan. So when I was at JP, we had developed what's called the sort of global payment system. It was sort of to facilitate real-time payments between businesses. And so the team got a patent for that. But then it was quite funny towards the end of my development career, it kind of came full circle. I was actually ending up working to replace it. So kind of came across some of the same people and the same names, which was quite fun. But throughout that entire time, I was more gearing myself towards entrepreneurship, and it's something I knew I always wanted to do. So during that time, I'd been just learning as much as I possibly could to sort of make that happen. And it was at that point I ended up sort of founding a company of my own called Yeti, which was to do with improving the livelihoods of people in rural areas of emerging and developing nations by increasing their access to financial services. And that again was kind of spurred on by and sort of inspired by some of my time spent sort of volunteering in quite remote areas of emerging and developing nations. Probably spent about a year total doing that across sort of Nepal and Indonesia and others. And that kind of just, whenever you do entrepreneurship, you've always got to do something you're passionate about. And for me, that just seemed like the easiest thing to kind of sink my teeth into in a natural capacity. So I was doing that, ended up just kind of getting that to a certain point. And then I co-founded another company called Nettle, and that was to do with incentivizing people to be net zero, essentially, as well as sort of coupling it to rewards and payments. Then since then, I've probably not actually done that much coding. I'll sort of dabble when I need to, but really just sort of hung up my keyboard, so to speak. And obviously now doing all things Voy as well as doing some advisory work.
That is interesting. Oh, hold on. There we go. But we do got a question from someone from the audience. If he did the quest, he would. Well, he wouldn't know how many people are on the team, but he wants to know how many people are in the Voy team.
Yeah, that is a good question. So I think right now, so there's four founders, and then so Chris, Bill, myself, Shanti, and then there's seven people in the core team, I suppose. Yourself, Cody, being one of them, Dylan and Henrik. As well as that, we do have a kind of integrated marketing right now, which is probably a couple of other people that pop into the stand up, and they're kind of part of the team. But fundamentally, there's about seven of us on the core team right now. So nice and lean.
Okay. Nice and lean. We ain't trying to hire a crazy amount of people. But here we go. I got the next question here for you. Oh, wrong place. There we go. Gotta remember, I got two different windows I gotta post it in. But how did you find blockchain after all that? Like where did you first learn about like this wonderful magic internet money?
Mm. Yeah, I think it was very serendipitous timing, very fortunate timing with just what I had studied at university and the sort of industry I went into. Uh, I think fundamentally probably like first jumped into it in 2016, but obviously had heard about it maybe sort of 2 years prior. And it's funny because some of those early ventures that I had actually done, starting Yeti, the very first one that I had done, and onwards, is all been Web3 entrepreneurship. But I kind of learned about it back then, while at university, just kind of sort of again serendipitously did the correct subjects to very much align with blockchain. So cryptography being one, distributed systems being another, networking being another, just to name three sort of like really critical high level ones, as well as the plethora of other ones, really. And just coupled with that knowledge from having studied it and just the ventures that I did start with, it kind of just threw me feet first into it, to be honest. But it was funny because I'd never really chosen an ecosystem to call home. It's funny enough, when I was doing Nettle, came across Michael Cotton, actually. So Michael Cotton was actually probably the person that got me into the Algorand ecosystem initially. And I love Michael. I think he's a really great guy, really nice. And yeah, we get on really well. It was just quite funny that it just takes one person really just to kind of drag you or kind of like push you in a certain direction to then end up there. And actually, that's how I met Chris as well, was through Michael too. So yeah, I've been in, kind of floating around the industry for quite a while, I suppose, but not really sunk my teeth into it until I started actually doing entrepreneurship as well at the same time.
Awesome. Yeah. I love Michael as well too. I mean, I've worked for a couple of his entrepreneurships as well. Really awesome guy. Um, all right, I got someone to ask a question here. Rashid wants to know, when will Void have a mobile compatible wallet?
That is a great question. So we're hoping this because right. So first up, all of the ecosystem projects are fully community built and run. This isn't, you might see some other ecosystems where they've had to kind of bootstrap by building maybe some of their own DeFi protocols or their wallet, or maybe they'd use a third party one that's already exists. So right now, the wallet that would be closest to launching on mobile would be Kabisi's. So obviously right now it's a browser extension one, but last time I checked, it's probably I'll give him a little bit of leeway here. It's probably a couple of months down the line, but I would love to see that launch during this incentivized testnet phase, essentially.
So the question we essentially are telling you, Rashid, food with the
Yeah, pretty
TA.
soon, pretty soon. I would hope very soon.
All right. Well, the next question I got for you here, sir, is like, when you were building and you were just actively coding, what's the coolest thing you personally ever built? You're like, man, this is cool. I love this. This is the neatest thing ever.
Hmm. I guess it really depends. I mean, personally, I thought Yeti was really cool. And what that was really was kind of like a SMS banking system. So the SMS was kind of really just an interface on top of blockchain. So you might be able to transfer funds to someone else just by sending a text message to, yes, some sort of centralized portal to process these things, but actually just have blockchain as the settlement layer. So I thought that was really interesting. I thought that would have been really, really cool to see happen. I do still want to see it happen. It was just probably the very first thing I ever did try and sort of do like properly with entrepreneurship. So it's hard to get the first one up off the ground, but it's something I would definitely like to go back to at some point. I just think there's a lot of potential there for the impact it can create and drive in a lot of these different sort of rural areas. And honestly, like not even just in emerging and developing nations. I think it'd be a really, really cool thing to see happen. So that I would say is probably one of the coolest things I've actually built. Other than maybe I'm kind of doing myself a discredit by not talking about some of the things I've done while being a full-time employee at places, but they don't really count if you ask me. They're not as fun. A really small, tiny thing which I thought was quite interesting was just for me and my mates. I just created this little thing called I think it's called Who Up, kind of like a play on WhatsApp. Will literally just be like a 7-day window, and it's just you just tick yes or no if you're up to going to the pub or getting a drink or going to the park or something. Just sort of completely eliminate the need for communication. You just check the app and see who's just happens to be available and wants to do something that evening. So I thought that was kind of funny, but that was just honestly that was kind of hacked together. Just like I think I had a Google Sheets backend in terms of the database as well, so it was very bare bones, but it was just something little small fun thing to do, to be honest.
That's still hilarious. I can see that wingman needed.
Yeah, maybe that's what it could be adapted for. That's for sure.
Oh man. All right, all right. Well, to kind of keep on that like momentum I was asking there, what was the first thing you've ever built? Like what was the first like, archaic thing that you ever put together?
I guess it depends if you're talking about university or like side project or actual venture. If we're talking about literally the very first thing I ever created, which would have been a university, it would have been probably a Python calculator. I think that was probably the first thing they got us to create with a GUI on top as well. So yeah, that was probably the very first thing. But they had a range of different, kind of like get started coding things to do, which was similar to that. I feel like in university, I ended up creating like 5 different calculators across all the different programming languages they teach you, just because it seems to be the best way to learn. So that was probably the first thing. But if we're talking about side projects, probably a sort of travel blog that I put together. Just like, I actually create the website and, it's more my sort of first step into actually doing front end coding. Because at university, we actually pretty much exclusively focused on back end. So in order to teach myself front end, I ended up putting together this website where I could track the countries I visited to and what I've done there, and just otherwise just have a little bit of a blog associated to it. So that was probably the first side thing. And other than that, on the venture side, yeah, would have been Yeti.
Okay, that's cool. Well, I got some questions from the audience here.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
they are trying so hard to squeeze alpha out of you. Are there any powerful names or brands behind Void that are not publicly announced? Hugging emoji, smiling emoji.
I mean, nothing that I can speak about, but I would say definitely keep your eyes peeled in the next month. I think there's going to be some interesting things coming out. That's for sure. That's about the extent of what I'll say for now.
Then we got another one here from Anarchy. We as the Turkish users have been supporting you in the node setup and marketing since first day. Are good days waiting ahead for us in the coming days, or or is there any minor spoilers you could share? Essentially,
No, it's honestly, it's a great opportunity just to, I mean, just reiterate how much we do appreciate our Turkish community. I think, honestly, I think there's probably equal number of Turkish people as there are Americans at this point in the community. Obviously, I'm neither, but it's great to see from what an early stage they did come in and support the project, not just on the infrastructure and the node running side, but also just on the community building side as well. And I think, yeah, the people that got in early on the node running side, on the Turkish community, they've done very well in the first phase. And yeah, I would say that they're definitely going to walk away smiling come the conclusion of the second phase.
oh yeah, the Turks are going to be doing good, for sure. All right. The next question I got for you is, what is like one of your favorite blockchain dApps that you've ever used across like all blockchains? Like you just was impressed by the actual capacity of this app.
Hmm. It's a good question. I mean, I'd be horribly biased if I were to say, Kubisi's, Nautilus, Highforge, etc. But I mean, definitely, it'd be wrong of me to say that those are my favorites, but they 100% are. Honestly, any of the projects in the Voy ecosystem, they're really top notch. It's really impressive what the developers have built, and couldn't be excited or more excited for them to kind of actualize the success that's coming their way. In terms of externally, this is a good question, actually. Couldn't tell you. I mean, honestly, NFD has been one of the slickest experiences in my mind, just in terms of like actual projects out there. That was actually quite a pleasant experience, contrary to most dApps. But I think that was also kind of what brought me into the Algorand ecosystem in the first place, was just how less clunky pretty much most of the projects were relative to other ecosystems. Things just worked, which is what I really like to see. I'm a big believer in abstracting away the complexities of blockchain and just actually delivering a very consistent and similar UX to what people are used to. And I just don't really see how that's possible on any other tech stack. So for me, it's always been about those types of projects more so than anything.
All right, yeah, I could definitely agree, and couldn't agree more. I got a question here from Algo Wi-Fi. What do you think about the European market?
Yeah, good question. In terms of like users and adopters, like Web3 native people, I'd say it's definitely a big one, but it's quite fragmented or segmented, just given the number of different countries. It's quite easy to look at America, for instance, and it's just kind of this big amorphous blob of users, right? Because it's just one country, one language. But Europe is, equally big in a lot of ways. I think it might be slightly more difficult to tap into, just given how it is naturally more segmented as a market. But again, you can work that to your advantage as well if you do sort of like hyper focus on a particular country. But I think there's a huge amount of potential. We do have a good European base as well. I think actually majority of our participation nodes, probably about half of them are in Europe. So it's hard to get any sort of granular details on the users and where they are other than through Discord. But again, because it's so many different countries, it's just really heavily fragmented. It's hard to see. But I do think as time goes on, we're going to see more and more people sort of emerge from Europe as a whole. America has always been a lot more forward thinking when it does come to technology, and people are more eager to pick up a lot of this tech and sort of run with it. So naturally, we've seen them kind of lead the charge, but I would love to see more of the UK and the rest of Europe sort of start participating as well. It's been a difficult one for the UK. There's not, it's equally got very ambiguous sort of licensing and things like this. It's hard to be a crypto company in the UK, but I do believe that that will change across the board going forward.
Okay. Well, I got another question here from Rashid. Uh, have you ever think of considering marketing strategies to onboard more African and slash Asian communities? I think we could both agree they create a buzz in any blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say our marketing strategy is funny because I always kind of feel like Web3, when you look at the users, is hard to tell or know where anyone is from. In a lot of ways, there are no borders in Web3. So it is interesting. I wouldn't say we have any particular marketing strategies to focus on specific countries and regions, more that those regions and countries would 100% be encompassed in our current marketing strategies. I think, for instance, if we're talking about Africa and Asia specifically, we have a very large Nigerian community. We also have a very large Indonesian and Vietnamese community. So it's not so much a matter of targeting these regions specifically. I think we will of course have ambassadors in these sort of regions, which will obviously help onboard people. But it's a good question. Maybe we should look more into if there is some more specific strategies that would work in those regions that might not work elsewhere. But 100%, it's on the top of our radar as well, is to onboard people all around the globe fundamentally. One of the premises of Voy is really just equal access to opportunities. And that means it doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, what your background is, what your history is, doesn't matter. As long as you can add value, then you're more than welcome here, and you're more likely than not going to get something out of it.
Couldn't agree more. Also, Django wanted to let you know you have the cleanest webcam in history. All right, of webcams.
Thank you.
All right.
I actually kind of
All
concerned with
right.
how with the fidelity of it, because you can probably see all my wrinkles.
The next question I got for you here, Benny, is how did you become a founder of Voy? What ended up in the working with Chris and Bill?
Yeah, so I knew Chris probably for about 2 years before Voy. He was actually one of my advisors for one of the ventures that I had founded. And we just got on. We're just good mates. We've met up a couple. I think actually maybe the first time I met was at Decipher. I can't remember. But ultimately, I just known Chris for the last couple of years. He liked what I was building. I'm a big advocate and believer in the fact that blockchain can change the world, not just on an efficiency like increase level, which I think is just massive, but it's very passive and very hard to conceptualize, but also on the paradigm changes. I think ultimately blockchain is a force for good. And I think, my background has always been on leveraging technology for impact. And I just see blockchain as a big enabler of that. And I think that's kind of why Chris and I got on so well for so long, is because that's actually one of his core tenets as well, I suppose, is, leveraging this piece of technology to do good in this world. So ultimately, we kind of just resonated probably on like sort of a mission and vision level, but equally just on a personal level, we just get on really well. We've been whiskey tasting in Scotland, for instance, and been to a few conferences together now. But I kind of got involved fundamentally because of that. Just knew Chris, spoke to Chris every week. I saw this happening, and I just knew it was something that I could sink my teeth into. I'd be very interested in. I'd bring a lot of passion to the table. So I just started adding value. So I think probably from about January, I think pretty much beginning of last year, truly started contributing on a more like full-time, like meaningful basis. And it's just exactly that. You just put in the time, put in the value, like prove yourself, and ultimately, yeah, just ended up working alongside Chris and Bill, and then just kind of naturally evolved into a founder because of just the amount of work I was doing fundamentally.
Nice. All right. Well, Rashid has another question here. How is Void connected to Algorand blockchain?
Yeah, great question. I guess there's two ways to answer that. Number one, just on the technology. So it is fundamentally using the same technology under the hood. So anything that works on Algorand will work on Voy and vice versa. That's pretty much what the sort of association is with to Algorand blockchain. But obviously, we're starting anew with a new sort of different focus on the way we want to take the ecosystem, you could say. But the technology and the network that underpins our ecosystem is exactly the same. And then what that enables, to kind of the second point of the question, if you mean connected as in, are they physically connected? Is it does enable decentralized bridging. So obviously Algorand has had state proofs, which can enable state proof or decentralized bridging, but there hasn't been another AVM to be able to utilize that. So that is something we are also wanting to actually get live and running, is to have decentralized bridging between the two networks so that one can do bridging without having to trust an individual entity or users or a collection of users. You just have to trust mathematics. So there's a number of different ways that we are connected, I suppose.
All right. Well, Kaito first wants to know, do you build your own NFT collection for Void Network?
So so the core team of Voy has created a NFT collection. It's called Voy VIPs. This is a collection of all the different contributors and stakeholders and people that have like really, really gone above and beyond and have helped out in the first phase of the testnet. This is an ever evolving and growing collection. This isn't line in the sand. This is all that's going to be. We really want this to be a living and growing collection that, as we kind of identify more core contributors, if you will, they will also become a part of that collection and kind of be immortalized into the network, if you will. But beyond us, that's kind of the only, say, Voy, core team collection. There's a number of different collections as well that's been published by various different artists. I think there's probably 25 plus right now. And obviously, hopefully these guys will be with us into mainnet as well, and they can start either adding to their existing collections or creating new ones.
All right. And the next question I got for you, sir, is what part of the Void mission really hit home for you? Like when Chris pitched it to you, you're like, oh my God, this is it. This is the main part that's like, oh my God, I hope this is here and it's there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things to Boy, and obviously it's a evolving and growing thing. It's come a long way since I started contributing in January. But I think the way it is right now, the things that kind of really stand out for me is being sort of meritocratic. You add value, you get out what you put in, basically, right? And I think one thing that's really, really going to set us apart is as an ecosystem. Like, yes, the tech is great. Yes, the network's amazing. But I think the ecosystem is really where the magic happens in my eyes. And I think it's going to be fundamentally kind of creating an open protocol or crypto network, if you will, that is actually built, run, and owned by the contributors. So, the people that stick around, the time horizon for the tokenomics right now is 20 years. This isn't a come in, do some stuff, get out, get a whole allocation of tokens. This is definitely a long-term commitment. And it's those true community members that are here for the long haul, day in, day out, adding value, that are going to be sort of owning a large stake, if you will. So I think for me, it's that which kind of really fundamentally sets this apart from other networks, is the fact that people can come in. It's an open ecosystem, equal access to opportunities, whether that's governance or development or otherwise. People get out what they put in. And yeah, I really think that that's what it comes down to, is building an open protocol, an open ecosystem for people to build on top of and utilize. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to that being actualized in the in the coming years, really.
All right. And Rashid is not asking a question, but making a statement this time. And kudos to whoever compiled the Void documentation on Airtable. Everything is easy to find. You also include the links to the faucet. That will be super helpful.
Yeah, yeah, there is a bit of an ecosystem directory on the Airtable. That's right. That is a bit of a stopgag or a placeholder. I do know a company called Headline are working on Voyager.org, which will be a bit more of a fleshed out, interactive, and better experience. But it is great just having a bit of a too long didn't read. Just give me a list of everything, and I think Airtable does do the job there for the most part.
Okay, we got like 30 seconds left, so I think we'll go ahead and end it here, Benny. And I really, really appreciate your time, and I appreciate everyone for tuning in, and I'm sure Benny does as well. This was a lot of fun. All the great questions from everyone. It was really great to see everyone interacting. Great to see everything done, and can't thank you guys so much for everything y'all do, whether it be in the Discord, running nodes, helping others, onboarding, you name it. You guys are doing it. You guys are living by the values. Anything you'd like to add at the end, Benny?
Yeah, I'd really just want to again extend a massive thanks to everyone for watching, listening to me ramble, asking me questions. Yeah, it's really fun just to actually be able to talk to people in the community and the ecosystem. So yeah, just please, thank you for coming and thank you for being here and being a part of what we're doing and what we're building. And thank you, Cody, as well for putting this all together.
No, thank you, sir, and I salute you all. And until next time, everyone, peace.
Cheers, guys. Bye bye.